Welcome back to Fishing the 262. This is going to be episode 3 of our comprehensive guide to making bass jigs. This episode is going to introduce a few more pieces of equipment, so at this point you're pretty invested and we're going to continue to invest. This is something you've come this far in and you've obviously taken quite an interest to it, so we're going to talk about a few new things we're going to need for this part of the journey. So first and foremost, we're going to introduce ProTech powder paint. We're going to talk about how to cure ProTech powder paint, and we're going to talk about some of the other supplies that you're going to need. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. I'm going to paint up a few jigs here, you guys, really quick. You guys, some of you may have seen me do this before, but this is that Boss jig head. You can see I've already loaded the Teflon pin, got my shrink tubing on it. We're just going to get it into the heat source, and I'm going to paint a few jigs here because I want to show you guys a few different things about painting with ProTech here. So we're just going to hold this over our heat source, and then it's going to go into the toaster oven. And I'll show you my toaster oven here in just a minute, you guys. I don't have anything fancy. Feels like we're pretty hot there. Give that a dip. About perfect. So you guys can see that. And this paint is Magic Corral Blue from ProTech. We'll pull our Teflon pin out of there. Get our shrink tubing off the eye. And hang this in the toaster oven. And I'm going to show you guys my toaster oven because I want you guys to understand why I think it's important you invest in a toaster oven to do this process. Give that another quick stir to keep that nice and loose. You can buy a fluid bed for this if you guys want to. I think they're about $100 on some of the websites. I don't dip enough volume, in my opinion, to justify buying a bunch of fluid beds. But if this is something you're going to get really crazy serious about, you may want to do that. Should be good and hot there. Knock off our excess. Now, I'm going to show you two different things here, you guys. This next jig, I'm not going to get hot enough intentionally. And hopefully it'll show up on camera here. We're just going to give this a quick flash in the heat, and then we're going to give it a dunk. Because as you're learning to do this, there's going to be a little bit of learning curve. There's nothing here that cannot be overcome. So we've given it a little bit of heat. We give it a dunk. And you can see that that's just not what we're looking for. It looks real powdery. It's not a big deal. We're just going to return it to the heat. The paint that's on there will actually start to bake and look a little bit better. As you see, we applied some heat there, and you can kind of see that color starting to show up in areas a little more. But we'll get this plenty hot this time around. And we'll just go ahead and give that another dunk into our paint. And you can see we've completely recovered from that. Now, this is starting to cool down. If I just dip it back in there, you'll see that it turns powdery again. Don't worry about that so much. That will take care of itself in the toaster oven, okay? So no big deal there. It looks like we got a little bit of shrink tube stuck in the hook eye. We'll get that out of there and into the toaster oven. Now, on the flip side, I'm going to get this one plenty hot. I'm going to try to do this a little bit more on camera so you guys can see, hopefully, what I'm talking about. These are half-ounce flipping jigs that I poured. I'm painting these up. A buddy of mine at work asked me to tie a few of these up for him, so told him I'd get that taken care of. I got a few days off here. I just had 4 wisdom teeth pulled yesterday, and then I had another tooth that they tried to save with a root canal, and it didn't work. So they took that one out too. So I had 5 teeth come out yesterday. Take care of your teeth, people. It's expensive. We're going to keep heating this. We're going to overheat this one a little bit. And you'll know you've overheated because when you dip, it's going to smoke. See that smoke coming up off of there? That's a jig that's way too hot. That one we're not going to recover from. See how that just kind of ran down the side? So this jig is going to the scrap heap, but I think this is an important lesson to learn. I pour these myself. This isn't a big deal to me. I mean, it's going to cost me about 40 cents to throw that in the garbage, but I think showing you guys that is worth the 40 cents because it's important to understand how the heat affects the process. That was just simply way too hot. That won't level out. That will not smooth out if we put that in the toaster oven. This jig is now garbage. And that's okay, you guys. You're gonna learn some things along the way. You're gonna improve as you go, but I just want you guys to kind of understand what's happening with the process. So that's why I did that one for you guys. All right, let's get the heat turned, the flame turned off, cover our paint back up. Actually, we want to get that out of there. We dripped some cured paint into the powder, but we'll worry about that later. Not a big deal, but again, it's just something you're going to learn along the way. So now I'm going to show you something in my toaster oven here that I think is really important, you guys. And this is why I want you guys to have an independent oven for this. Hopefully you can see that. If you get the toaster oven even just a little bit too hot, some of the colors are more sensitive and they will drip. And you'll end up with that on the bottom of your oven. You do not want powder paint on the bottom of the oven that you cook in, or more importantly, that your wife bakes in. So make sure you have an independent heat source to bake these jigs, because you do have to bake ProTech paint in order to get it to cure. So I've got my oven set as per the directions at, I believe, 350 for this one. So my oven runs a little bit hot, so I set her to about 330. We're going to crank her up for about 15 or 20 minutes and let those jigs come to a complete cured state. I have one already done in the vise over there, so we're going to head over there and we're going to start tying right away. All right, you guys, we're back over here. We're at my tying vise. We're going to talk about a few more supplies that you're going to need if you're going to tie with this method. First and foremost, you're going to need a vise. You're going to need a thread bobbin, and you're going to need some thread. This is 210 flat wax. I like the Danville 210 denier flat wax thread. You're going to need some Loon water-based head cement. We'll break down the costs of all this stuff when we get to the end of the video here, you guys, so stick around for that. And then we're going to need our tabs. We've got our pre-painted. This is a Boss jig head like we've used in the first 3 versions of this tutorial, so that's nothing new there. You're going to need some tabs. This is going to be a 3-color tie. We are going to use Magic Craw. This is a 100-pack. That's color number 420 from fishingskirts.com. I'm going to use Green Pumpkin Blue, part number 154, 400. And then I'm going to also use a couple of strands of just blue with blue flake. This is from Lure Parts Online, and it's just kind of a little translucent blue. So we're loaded up. I pre-cut all my tabs. I like to tie in half and quarter tab sections. It just allows me to get a nice even distribution across the entire jig. You can tie full tabs if you want to save a little bit of time, you guys. But this is how I like to do it. It comes out the best for me. So we're going to start with a base wrap. Just like that. I have blue thread on here. You can use any color thread you want. I keep about 3 or 4 or 5 of these bobbins laying around, so I don't have to continually switch my colors. But that's up to you guys too, depending on how far along you want to jump into this. So one thing that's really important to understand when we're hand tying like this, the color that we put on first will be the prominent color when we flip this jig over. So I'm going to start with just 4 strands of that blue. We're going to go on what I refer to as the belly of the jig, because this is the portion of the jig that lays on the bottom if you're dragging this jig along. So or if you're even swimming it, this would represent the belly of the jig. We're going to get a couple of loose wraps on there. I'm going to spread these out just a little bit. This one's for me, so I'm not going to take too much time making it perfect, because one thing I've learned, you guys, as you're first starting out, the bass will eat the jigs that you think are ugly. They're not as smart as we think they are. A couple of tight wraps there to hold that in place. We're going to flip that over. We're going to do 4 more strands of the blue on what we would call the spine. If this were a swim jig and you are swimming it through the water, this is what I would refer to as the spine of the jig. Again, it's 4 strands of blue. So 8 in total. This is about as bulky as you guys will see me tie. I'm pretty much a 2 to maybe 2.5 tab tire when it comes to jigs. Couple loose wraps. We're going to spread some of these out a little bit. Nothing too crazy here. Couple of tighter wraps. Just lock everything down. And on to the next color. I want this Magic Craw to be the last color. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up or not, but this has a really blue shimmer to it. If the light had hit it just right, I don't think we're going to get it to show up on here for you guys. But this has a lot of blue, so I want that to be the last color so that it's a little more muted. So the next color that I'm going to tie in is going to be my green pumpkin with blue flake. I'm going to do this a half tab at a time, like I said. I just like to get a nice even spread with my jigs. I like them to look relatively uniform. Again, they do not have to be perfect, you guys. These fish aren't as intelligent as we like to make them out to be, and they're not nearly as picky as we would think that they are. They are just simple creatures. They feed, they breed, and then they feed some more. Okay, I got that pretty much where I want it. Again, this is not going to be a perfect looking jig. I don't sell my jigs. I'll recover some costs if my buddies want some, and I take a little more care with theirs than I do with my own. But obviously, if you're selling your jigs at some point down the line, you're going to want to take a good bit of time and just, you know, come up with a system that works for you so that you can get a really high quality jig tied. If you're going to try to bring them to the market and sell them, you want to be proud of your work. You want them to represent your business and yourself. So, but like I said, this one's just for me. This is going to go in my personal box. I'm not too overly concerned. I'm going to spread this green pumpkin out, just get it to match up with the other half tab on both sides. And pretty decent there, I think. Decent coverage. All right, we got that where I want it. We're going to cinch that down. A couple of good tight wraps. And again, this 210 is, just be careful that you don't trap any silicone in there too, because that'll make your tie look lousy. It won't really hurt your jig. It'll just make it look kind of lousy. And now lastly, we're going to go on with our Magic Craw Blue. I wish it would show up on camera because there is a lot of blue in this, but one of the problems in my basement here too is I got a lot of LED lights, and they really do drown out some colors at times, especially when you're taking photos or shooting videos. But again, a couple loose wraps. We're going to spread that around the bottom half of the jig. Get that situated where we want it. And we're about done with this. We got one more tab to throw on, and then we'll finish this thing off. Get some thread sealer on it. One thing you want to think about when you tie your jigs too is how do you like your collar? Everybody has a varying opinion on this. I prefer a pretty thin collar. I know some guys that tie really wide and thick collars. That is not my style, but again, these are your jigs, and you got to make them the way that you want them. So I try to keep my collars relatively thin. I just think it looks cleaner. I don't think it affects the fishability necessarily one way or the other. I just think it looks nicer, personally. All right, we're going to get this last couple loose wraps here. Last half tab of the Magic Craw. You guys, I fish a lot of green pumpkin purple, and I was out with a buddy, and we were fishing a grass line. I mean, so we were fishing the same area. We were both throwing basically the same jig head. I was throwing green pumpkin purple, and he was throwing a Magic Craw. Not quite like this, but similar to this, and absolutely throttling me with it. Like, it was incredible. I couldn't believe how many more fish he was catching than I was with this Magic Craw. So I decided I better have a few of these in my arsenal. We're going to just get a good tight wrap on this now. Finish off our collar. Again, I'm going to try to keep that relatively narrow. And I am going to call that good. I'm just going to give this a spin. Yep, we don't have any silicone trapped. I'm going to use my standard finish. I don't have one of those cool whip finishing tools. I'm actually going to twist tie this off a little bit just to keep some of that out of my way. Okay, let's finish this guy off. We'll get some of our Loon water-based head cement on here. We'll glue in a brush guard, and we'll talk about cost on some of these things that you're going to have to buy if you take this step in the journey. But if you're this far along, I got to imagine most of you are going to want to take this jump. And then in our next video, we will just talk about the final stages of being a full-on jig making addict. This is a great hobby for me because I do not partake in the ice fishing experience here in Wisconsin. I don't enjoy it. So I do a lot of this kind of stuff during the winter time. Snip off that tag end just like that, and we're going to hit this with just a little bit of the Loon base. The nice thing about this water-based head cement, you guys, is if it gets on your material, it dries clear. It doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt anything. Give that a spin. We'll get the bottom side. Now, we'll give that just a couple of seconds to dry up. And while we do that, let's talk about some of the expenses that we've just incurred on this stage of the journey. So we know that at this point you have to go out and buy a bobbin. Bobbins are anywhere from $5 to $40, you guys. This is where it's going to be completely up to you to decide how deep you want to go into this hobby. This bobbin right here is one of my favorites. It's made by a company called Stonefo, I believe is how you pronounce it. I picked these up at my local fly shop. I think they're $12.99 a piece. So they're middle of the road when it comes to bobbin pricing. They're not the high-end $40 bobbins. They're not the cheap $5 bobbins. I think what I appreciate about this one more than anything is it's just got a nice little resting spot for your thumb and your fingers to grip a hold of. So I think they're worth the price. So again, $5 to $40, depending on you. I would recommend, you know, something in this line. Budget yourself maybe $50 and buy 2 or 3 of these if you can. If you can't, it's okay. Thread. The Danville flat wax thread is $3 a spool. There's 100 yards on there. It ties a lot of jigs, you guys. Same thing. I get that at my local fly shop. You can pick it up at Bass Pro Shops. I think it's about $5 or $6 there. I like my fly shop. The guys there are great. I like to do business locally whenever I can, and I save a little bit of money over there too. So the Loon water-based head cement is about $8. I don't even know how many jigs I've tied off of this same thing, and it's not even a quarter of the way gone. I mean, this stuff goes a really, really long ways, you guys. So our powder coat paints. You can buy as many or as few of these as you want. This is my Magic Craw Purple. I always just write on the top so I know what I'm looking at when I'm looking at my tub of paints. It's about $8 a can. You're going to need a toaster oven. If you're going to use ProTech, you're going to have to cure it in an oven. And I would strongly recommend that you do not bake lead and that you do not drip paint in your cooking oven where you prepare your food. That's just me. Do what you will. You are going to need a vise. This is an area where you can spend very little or you can spend a lot of money. Mine is a Renzetti. This is a saltwater traveler. I think these are about $300. The great thing about this is it's portable. It's got a nice sturdy heavy base. It is a true rotary, so I can spin it if I want to. You don't have to buy a true rotary. I would recommend that you buy something that spins. It just makes tying the jigs a little bit easier, a little bit more convenient. I think I finally threw it away. I had like a $40 vise. They had a bench clamp on it, so it wasn't, it was more fixed, but you could take it and unscrew it and move it to a different table if you wanted to. It did have some, it wasn't a true rotary, but I could spin it 360 degrees. I think that's a really important feature when it comes to your vise. Make sure that it spins 360 degrees. But again, this is an area where you can invest a lot or a little. You can invest anywhere from, like I said, that $40. This vise was $300. I got a really good deal on this. I didn't pay the full $300. I think I got it for under $200 actually, but normally speaking, they're $300. And if you get on the Renzetti website, you will see some absurdly priced vices. It's just the way that it is. What's nice about the saltwater, if you can afford the $300, is this clamp right here will take up to a 7/0 hook. I typically don't tie anything bigger than 4, maybe 5/0 hook occasionally, but 5/0 hook to me is like a gaff. I don't like my hooks to be that big. So 4s and 5s are about as big as you'll ever see me go. I tie a lot of 3/0s. So this vise will handle them all. Those some of the smaller vices are designed for tying teeny little flies. They're not going to accommodate the larger hooks, so be careful with that part of the purchase. But be within your means, be within your budget. If you can afford this Renzetti Saltwater Traveler, I would highly recommend it. This is as nice a vise as I could ever need for the jigs that I tie. I don't tie anything real tiny. I tie primarily bass and walleye jigs, hair jigs for walleyes, silicone and living rubber for bass. So this does everything I need it to do. It'll handle, you know, my size 2 jigs that I do for some of my walleye stuff, all the way on up to, like I said, a 7/0 if I ever wanted to go that big. So we need a bobbin, we need thread, we need water sealer, we need a toaster oven, and we need a vise to do this. So let's go ahead, we'll get this thing finished up now that cement is dried enough. So this is what you're going to end up with right now. We're going to real quick, I'm going to get my little twisty tie off of there. We're going to snip those ends off. If I can find my scissors right there underneath the tabs when I threw them off to the side. We're going to give those a trim right there. Come to our bottom side. Give those a trim right there. And you'll see now when I flip this thing over what I was talking about. When you orientate your colors, how they appear on the jig. You can see that blue, that light blue, the first color that I tied is the very top of the jig now. That's the most prominent color. That's why I tie it as an accent, and I don't put a ton of it in there. Then we went in with that green pumpkin, and then the last color is going to be the Magic Craw. It's going to kind of subdue some of that blue shimmer that's in there. We're going to glue in a weed guard. I got one laying right here. We've got our Loctite from our previous videos. Just a little dab. Stick that guy in there, and we have a jig that is ready for the water. I would trim that skirt down a little bit. I would trim this brush guard back just a little bit, but this is ready to go. This jig is ready to fish immediately. So let's break it down again really quick. Bobbin, $5 to $40, depending on your budget. I would say land in that middle somewhere like I have, because I keep one for brown thread, I keep one for chartreuse, I keep one for blue, I keep one for green pumpkin or olive, and I like one for just straight black. So that's up to you though. You can just change colors every single time. I just don't find it worth the hassle when I'm down. When I get in a tying mode, I just want to keep tying. So thread, $3 a spool. Get as many or as few colors as you like. We're going to need our water-based head cement for $8. Toaster oven, I got mine brand new in the box at a yard sale for 20 bucks. I did look online a little bit. Seems that you can buy a Black & Decker similar for mine for about 40 brand new. But so anywhere from, you may be able to get one free if somebody's getting rid of it, all the way on up to $50 or $60, just depending on how crazy you want to go. And then lastly, the vise, you're going to spend anywhere from $40 to, I'm going to say, unlimited. But I think if you really do some searching around, there's some really great options in that $100 to $200 range. And then there are, like I said, the cheap options in the $40 price range. So that's, again, it's going to be up to you and what your budget looks like, you guys. How much did this jig just cost me to make? I paid 70 cents from that jig head. I paid 40 cents worth of tabs. And let's go nuts and say I used 10 cents worth of thread paint and head cement. We're into this jig right here for $1.20. I think that is a really nice price to pay for a really high quality jig. There's no doubt in my mind I'm going to take this jig out next spring and next summer, and I'm going to smash on it. Like, this is a really high quality jig, and if this is as far as you ever go in this hobby, you are going to be able to create some incredible jigs for an incredible price. We will make a couple more videos and talk about some other pieces of equipment. We'll make one more that's going to focus on actual equipment, and then we're going to do a 5th bonus video about how to tie with living rubber, because it's a little bit different material than silicone. So that's all I've got for you today. This video I know is a little long-winded, but I really do appreciate you guys hanging in there. If you gained anything meaningful from this video, please Subscribe to the channel if you want to. At least smash that thumbs up button. It helps the algorithm. It helps me get a few more views. Someday I might make $1 off of YouTube, but I'm not very optimistic. But we'll catch you guys on the next one. Tight lines, everybody.